Good evening. We are starting tonight the 16th chapter of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe is going to speak about two Beinoni personalities, and more the second. First, he's going to speak about the Beinoni personality, and he's going to emphasize a point which perhaps wasn't so clear now, but it's really an introduction to the second Beinoni personality that wasn't discussed at all up until now. Now, really defined the Beinoni is his behavior. And the distinction between the Beinoni and others is, and the Rasha or regular people, is that the Beinoni, he acts and behaves righteous. He's not a sinner. He still has that struggle, and it's that struggle that talks to everybody. And what made Tanya such a popular sefer is because everyone can relate to the struggle, and everyone would like to improve themselves and better themselves and make themselves more noble. So the Beinoni, bottom line, does what's right. On one hand, he has his struggle, and on the other hand, he always does what's right. He's not a goody-goody in the sense that he always thinks and inside and outside wants to do what's right. He has its struggle. He entertains the idea to do things which are not right, but nevertheless, he always does what's right. So it would seem that the Beinoni is inside all complicated, but on the outside he does what's right. It sounds like he's a very strong-willed person that controls his impulses by the virtue of will alone. So he has crazy impulses, sinful thoughts, and is even motivated perhaps to do things that are gross, and entertains the thought of doing something that is even sinful, but his strong will holds him back. But the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that for the Beinoni, really he should also work on his inner self. He should also work on his inner nature. And although the Beinoni will not necessarily be successful in changing his nature completely, but he should work on his feelings and on his passions, that they should be noble, they should be sublime, they should be refined. In other words, the work of the Beinoni is not only controlling himself, and inside is a wild animal, but he should tame the wild animal that is inside. So how do you get inside the Beinoni? How does he get inside the Beinoni? How does the Beinoni get inside himself to refine himself? So that's what that's what he starts in the beginning of Perek Tezayin. This has been already discussed in Yud Beis and Yud Gimel, but it's interesting the way he succinctly gives a brief review of it and emphasizes really good points. And then we're going to get to the other Beinoni personality, which is really the main point of chapter 16. And we start with the important principle that applies to the Beinoni in the way they serve Hashem. Ha'ikar, the main thing is limshel v'lishleit al hateva shebachal hasmali. It's to rule over the nature of his heart. The left side of his heart is animal soul here is. And here the emphasis is that it's not only he should rule over his actions, but he should work on influencing his nature himself, to have, so to say, this inner conversation with himself, managing his emotions. That he should think about how he could work on himself to improve his nature, that from a beast it becomes a prince. And that's why he says, Lishlait al hateva shebechol hasmali. He doesn't say to control his behavior, his actions, which is really emphasized in the earlier prakim of Tanya, especially in chapter 12. The emphasis is that the Beinoni does what's right, and therefore he controls his behavior. And here he's saying, no, it is important and essential. It's an ikar. It's a main principle that he should also work on his controlling the nature of his heart. And how does he manage his emotions? Hashem empowers us to also refine our inner nature. And that is because he points two things, which was discussed also in the 12th and the 13th chapter. It is to control himself, to develop his inner self through the godly light, Oid Hashem, that shines in his nefesh shalakis, in his godly soul, that's in his mind, to control the heart. So in 12 and 13, it sounded like his 2 points. One is the natural and universal programming that Hashem made, that the brain controls the heart. And then there's also that there is a light. Hashem put a light in our brain, in our soul. And that light it lights up the darkness and can refine us. If we can tune into that light, we have an inherent light, an inherent godliness in ourselves, that if we can tune into that, it's going to refine us. And here he combines both. He says, so this is the empowerment. This is the key capability. How are we able to manage our emotions, to refine ourselves, to reprogram our emotions? It's through brain work and soul work, tuning into our soul and letting it shine through us. How do you tune into your soul? So he says, it's about thinking, meditating, and if you're mindful of Hashem. Are we mindful of Hashem? This is the first thing we have to ask. Are we mindful of Hashem, first of all? Are we aware of Hashem? How much do we think about Hashem? How much does the average person think about Hashem? And this is very important, because I think if someone is just following popular culture, there's very little talk about spirituality, about Hashem. And yet statistics have shown 90% of Americans believe in God. But it doesn't come across in the popular culture. Because the truth is, the popular culture doesn't really reflect what's really going on in the population. But we're focusing over here about this Yid who's trying to develop himself, and specifically, how can he make himself more refined to be a Beinoni? How can he tune into that Oir Hashem, to that godly light that's in him? And that's through thought, thinking, meditating about the greatness of Hashem. That's why our custom, and it's an important part of Yiddishkeit, is prayer. So prayer, on one hand, it's about asking Hashem, beseeching Hashem. The literal translation of prayer is making a request from Hashem. So, look at Hashem, I need this, I need that. So I'm asking Hashem for something. Hashem, scratch my back. But the inner meaning of prayer is connecting to Hashem, being mindful of Hashem, thinking of Hashem. In fact, the Jewish philosophers, even before Chassidus, said, does Hashem need us to ask us for things? And they say that it's more about us putting Hashem in our mind, in our life, in our mindfulness, that if there's something that we need, we should ask Hashem, more so that we become mindful about Hashem in our everyday life than the actual petition, asking Hashem, Hashem, I need this, I need that. So how does one bring that light of Hashem to move him and to affect his emotions? How does one influence his nature? The nature of the person are his feelings. It says in Chassidus, Iker ha'adam midos. What is the main part of the person is his character and his emotions. Not so much how smart he is, and not necessarily always what he does, but what he is. Is he kind? Or is he cruel? The main structure of the person's personality is his emotional balance, his emotional makeup, his emotional stability, his emotional health. How does one manage his emotions? It's through the mind. The mind is the key to emotions. The mind is the key to emotions. So if we want to refine emotions, let's have the brain thinking about what is going to refine the emotions. And the ultimate refinement is Hashem, the awareness of Hashem, and if he's going to meditate about Hashem, and see the greatness of Hashem, and how Hashem is in everything that is in his life. And when he wakes up in the morning and he becomes awareness of his own consciousness, he thinks and he says, Moida ani lefanecha, thank you Hashem, because he becomes aware of Hashem in his physicality, in his consciousness, in his senses, in his walking, in his seeing, in his taste. And this is Birchas HaShachar, in his hearing, in his movement, his moving and the steps that he takes. That's the blessings that we say every morning. Thank Hashem for each one of these physical qualities that we can live a healthy physical life. But he's connecting this to Hashem. But deeper than that, he's saying, if you want to develop his nature inside of him, on the inside, he has to think about an awareness of Hashem and feelings for Hashem. So we have feelings. We get excited about food that we eat, our sports team, money, and perhaps things that are not so kosher that we get passionate about. So how do we refine our inner self? So work on having a sense and a passion for what Hashem wants of life and of ourselves. So he should think deeply about Hashem, and this will inspire him to have love and fear of Hashem. And he starts with yira, and the yira over here is awe, not fear in the emotional sense, but awe. First of all, in his brain, he should have a sense of awe. Awe is more in the brain than in the heart. Because awe is a realization in the mind how awesome something is. And what is the most absolute awesome existence, that's Hashem. Because He's beyond. So no matter how many awesome experiences He has, and awesome things that He sees in the great world out there, that was made and created by Hashem, the experiences and the sights that He sees that are so awesome, Hashem is the source of all the awesome. So Hashem is really awesome. And certainly if he thinks about the greatness of Hashem and His spiritual Hashem and how He's transcendent and is beyond definition and is beyond any form of existence, etc., how the calls the Ein Sof, he doesn't speak about Hashem other than what the Kabbalah says, the infinite of all, the infinite, the absolute infinite. So there's nothing more awesome than the absolute infinite, the Ein Sof. So in his brain, he's going to say, wow, Hashem is awesome. And if he has that sense of awe, he's not going to do anything that's wrong. When you're in awe, you stop in your tracks. And there's not necessarily a pull there towards anything. It's, wow, I'm breathless. When say someone is in awe, he's breathless. To say the extreme awe, he's breathless. Why do we say he's breathless? Of course he's breathing, he's holding his breath. It's because he's stopped and he's totally taken by what brings awe to him. So if you want to change your inner self, so he says the first thing is that by meditating and thinking deeply, the deeper we think about Hashem, the more it's going to bring into our brain a sense of awe, which is necessary to keep us in step, not to entertain the thought that do anything that's wrong, to hold us back from doing that's wrong. Va'avas Hashem b'libay b'chol ha'imani, it'll also it's going to also bring us to have love and a passion to Hashem in the right side of his heart, where that's what this is, with desire and eagerness to connect to Hashem through Torah mitzvahs. L'dafka by bekim mitzvahs derais derabanan l'talmud Torah shekeneged kolam. So this is plan A for the Beinani, the ideal Beinani. So as we said before, it's not only that he's controlling himself because he has strong willpower, but he also has to work on his inner self, al hateva, on the nature of his inner self, and that although he will not completely change his nature, and that same and because that same heart that he's working to refine is still going to have lust and impulses, even for the sinful and the vulgar, but that same heart can also hold a passion for Hashem, at least by a Beinani. So the Beinani shouldn't let go, say, well, my heart, so to say, to the devil, I'm doing what's right, I have willpower. No. He should also work on his heart to influence his inner nature. And if he's going to influence his inner nature, that inside he senses that awe, and he has that passion to do Torah mitzvahs, to connect to Hashem through Torah mitzvahs, then controlling his impulses will be much easier. Because not only is he using his willpower, but he's going to temper his appetite for what is vulgar. If he becomes refined, and he at times can work on himself to actually have a love for Hashem and a passion for what is right and what is spiritual and what is good and what is kind, so he won't be a muscle head. He won't be just someone who's so into what is physical and sensual, he's going to have spiritual. And as I said before, although the Beinoni is not going to become totally a tzaddik, and he's not a completely rid himself, but he's going to temper his grossness, his vulgarity, and his nature to be a more refined nature. So this is plan A. And now he's talking about another type of personality, another personality that's in the Beinoni. And it's an interesting personality which some may relate to more, and some of us sometimes are the second personality of chapter 16. Some of us are that sometimes the first, something neither, sometimes not in the book, Tanya. So you got to get yourself a Tanya, become part of the book, and see yourself at least in some lines of Tanya. And that's why I think Tanya is an attraction, because everybody sees himself in Tanya somewhere, at least what he'd like to be. And this brings us to the second personality of Beinoni, what scholars of Tanya, Hasidim, call the Beinoni of chapter 16. So the Beinoni of chapter 16, of course, he does what's right, but his heart, he can't tickle his heart. He can't get his heart on fire. Why can't he get his heart on fire? So in a simple sense, because he's not so passionate. He's not a passionate person. And we're going to get into the Kabbalah in the note on the side of the page. We're going to get into the Kabbalah why he's not a passionate person. So what the Alter Rebbe is going to say, that the fact that he can't get really emotionally involved with his heart, for him is not a failing. It's not a flaw for him. And the Alter Rebbe is going to direct him how he should work. No, this is a person who's not going to come on fire with Yiddishkeit. He's not going to have a passion. So how can he do his utmost to do what's right in the world of Beinoni? And that's going to be the rest of this chapter. So now, the norm is, and the way the plan A and the way Hashem really structured us, there's the brain, there's the heart, and there's action. And the rest of our body. The mind, the emotions, and action. And the way it's supposed to work is the way our physical body is structured. When a man stands, his head is on top, under the head is the heart, and out of the heart come the hands, the feet, the rest of the body. So everything is supposed to start in the mind. It has to make sense. We have to understand it. And and with the mind, we affect our emotions. Now, some people, they naturally have emotions. They're not necessarily really deep emotions. It could be desires of physical desire, pain and pleasure. That's not really an emotion. That's an instinct. But emotion is a feeling for something, a love, a hate. So it's because you hate something because in your mind you know that hurt was hurtful or dangerous or is against you. And you love something because in your mind there's some seichel into it. So it starts in the seichel, it starts in the mind. And certainly if you want to develop and create a personality, it starts in the mind. Because in the mind you understand what's right and what's wrong, or what your goal is. Everything is in the mind. The managing emotions is in the mind. That's how Hashem programmed us. And then the emotions come after that. Now, the ideal is that a person should have emotions. A person shouldn't be cold. He should have feelings, all emotions. A person who has no emotions is a person that's cold. There's a person who there's something that is not complete. Hashem created emotions, so if you are complete, you have emotions. And emotions should be full emotions. So if the mind is healthy and the person is healthy, so the mind should control emotions, and be developed, and the emotion should be developed by the mind, and then these emotions will but put feeling into his actions. So his actions wouldn't be, like much of the things we're doing today, multitasking, all these things. Are your emotions into multitasking? What's the problem with texting while driving? Why don't you tell the police officer who stops you and tell him, I'm multitasking. I'm driving and I'm texting and I'm between two people I'm texting. So I'm multitasking. You can't, I could. Because it is expected that when you drive, you're doing something that can be dangerous, so we want your head and your heart in it. So real action is if it's emotional. You say good morning, you mean it. You say that you love your family, you mean it. You're doing something, you mean it. We're so far in the modern, fast-paced world that it's not that normal, and psychiatrists are really wondering what's going to be in 5 years from now with kids who were brought up with smartphones and how this is affecting their attention span in their mind, their emotional health, their capability of developing emotions, because you can't develop emotions going back and forth from one thing to the other thing. So here we are. So the norm, mind, you think it through, it makes sense. Then the feeling, you wait until the feeling is developed. Then the feeling is developed. The heart is a heart. The emotions are emotions. The love is love. The anger is anger. It's emotions. Could be healthy emotions, but there's emotions. And then the act, something doing hopefully kind, there's emotions in it. There's emotions in it. There's feeling in it. And connecting with Hashem, it's with the mind. Like he said before, in Plan A, in the first personality of Beinoni, just discussed in chapter 16. He thinks about the greatness of Hashem. He appreciates the greatness of Hashem as creator and as a spiritual entity of the Ein Sof. And he thinks about it, and he has a sense of awe, and his feelings, and he's pulled and drawn, and he's driven and motivated to daven, to do good. He has feelings what he's doing. But the second personality, it's as if he's skipping a step. His emotions don't get fully developed. There's no passion in him. So it goes from the mind to action. So he thinks about what's right, and as he's going to explain, there's some kind of love in his brain, but it doesn't come into a real mature feeling and pull and tug in his heart. But he does what's right. So it skips a step. And for this person, who that's his nature, it's fine. So let's analyze it. So he says, in addition, you should know another principle for the Beinoni. Shegam im ein yodei im yad sichlim v'ruach b'nosim haseges lahoy l'davas Hashem bizgalus libay, even though he cannot inspire himself to loving Hashem in a revealed sense, where he feels a pull in his heart that his heart should be on fire. And there's no feeling and desire and a drive that he actually senses and feels. He doesn't feel in his heart to connect to Hashem. So he doesn't have that passionate feeling. We said the ideal for the Beinoni is to develop a love for Hashem, that in his heart should be a love for Hashem. But he can't do that. He doesn't get himself inspired to that degree. Rak, what does he do? He has a love that is in the brain. What he says, in the hidden part of the heart. So in other words, there's a love in the brain. An interesting concept. How can there be a love in the brain? So this is what it is. He has a love in the brain. It's ha'avam, there's b'moichay. There's a love in the heart and a love in the brain, which is a very subtle and interesting analysis that Tanya has in Chassidus. Later literature talk about it again, about this personality. I would say a love in the heart, a person feels a tug in his heart. It pulls. The heart pulls, a passion. In his mind, he sees that this is something great, and he has some kind of, in his mind he has a pull. But his heart is not on fire. But there's something, in other words, it's the early birth of an emotion. And it works this way. This is called midish shebemoyach. We said before that, and this starts in the beginning of Tanya, that the mind gives birth to emotions. And in fact, the Kabbalah said that the intellect are the parents of emotions. Because just like parents give birth to a baby, the intellect gives birth to emotions. Like we said before, you can change your emotions and shape your emotions and make your emotions happen by the intellect and the mind. So therefore, before actually there's a real fire in the heart, there is like a beginning, a birth of the emotions. It first has to be in the brain. That in the brain at least you feel a pull towards that thing. In other words, it makes sense in your brain, really, that thing is really good for me. Let's say developing a love. So first it starts in the brain, it makes sense that should be the object of my love. So it makes sense that person should be the object of my love. Why? Compatible, this, that. So really, it could start in the brain, and in the brain, thinking about it, and how it makes sense, and not only after a while, it's not only a calculation, In my brain, I think I'm drawn to this person or this idea. In my brain, I'm already drawn. The person is drawn in his mind towards it. So being drawn to it in his mind is one step before it turning into the pull of the heart. It's like an intellectual pull. It's already developing, so to say. The brain is pregnant not only with the idea, but with the attraction. It's an intellectual attraction. It's not an emotional attraction. So, that person, however, is not emotionally involved. He's not on fire. But he wants to do what's right. So he's thinking about the greatness of Hashem and about the meaning of life, everything that he's supposed to think about, that is supposed to inspire him to do Torah mitzvahs, to have a love for Hashem, to love to do what's right. But he's not what so in his brain it's all working out. And in his brain, he even has, so to say, the intellectual pull, the intellectual love. but it's not in his heart. In his mind, he understands deeply the greatness of Hashem, the Ein Sof. The Kula Kamekle Chashem Mamish. And he's not only thinking in general terms, he appreciates that the whole universe, everything that's existent, is insignificant and nothing before Hashem. And therefore he comes to the conclusion that he should love Hashem. Really, I should love Hashem. And in my mind, I'm pulled to love Hashem. And I want to love Hashem. But I don't love Him in my heart. In my mind, I love. I should love. But I don't have that love on that level. Asher al kein ya'asa lo yizbarach shetich le'elav nefesh kol chai. It is appropriate for me to love. It makes so much sense for me to love Hashem. Because there's nothing better and brighter and more exciting and more perfect than Hashem and the lifestyle of Torah and of Yiddishkeit. Wow, Torah and Yiddishkeit makes so much sense. I should really be excited about this. But I'm not excited because I'm not a very excited person. I'm more a laid-back personality. So although I'm trying my best to inspire myself and be passionate, so in my mind I understand why it should be so. Now in the Hagah, on the note on the side, he says, Kabbalistic terms, Vasiba lazeh, the cause of this is he, Mepnei hayois, hamoichin shaloi v'naran shaloi, Mepchines ibur vehelem toichatfuna v'loy mepchines leida v'zgalus keidu liyedechem. The Kabbalah speaks about different personalities, and the different personalities because their souls come from different levels where the source of all the souls are. And some people's souls come from Pchines leida, where emotions become born. So therefore, they're going to have full-fledged emotions. But some are b'bchinas ibur, meaning that their souls come from a place where emotions are not fully developed. B'chinas ibur means gestation, pregnancy, where the baby is still not born. That is how the seed of the emotion is still in the mind. Like we said before, it's an intellectual love, and there's an intellectual pull towards feelings. So that's the level up there. There are levels of souls. That's where that comes from. So now he is meditating, and he's trying to inspire himself. So he says two interesting steps of this meditation, which I think also is very applicable and relates to us. First, we think in general terms, and then we personalize it. So this person is saying that I really should love Hashem, because Hashem is so often and so awesome, and He's so perfect. So I should love Hashem. No, he doesn't say that first. I should love. He says the whole world should be taken and by Hashem. Shetich le'elav nefesh kol chai lidabek v'lekol ba'irei. All of existence is coming from Hashem. And who is Hashem? He's the Ein Sof. So really, all of the existence, if they would only realize the truth, would connect to Hashem with a passion. So first he thinks in general terms. And also his soul, he himself included, and he personally should be in love with Hashem. Should be, because it's all in the mind. And he should be, in a sense, with the passion of the fire of the neshama. The neshama in its purity, when it's up there, neshamas, in the world of neshamas, in the spiritual dimension where neshamas are alone, they want to just connect with Hashem, surrender himself, and become one with Hashem. So this person would love, his soul would love to free itself from the body and become one with Hashem, like it's up there. But it can't. So the pure soul that's in us at a certain level in the subconscious would love to free ourselves from the body because all it wants is to cling to Hashem. But they're tied up in the body. Hashem put the neshama in the body. It's important to understand the subconscious desire of the neshama to be one with Hashem. And that's deep in our subconscious. That's perhaps why many people feel an emptiness in their life, because deeply subconscious, their subconscious is really drawn to the Spirit and to Hashem Himself. And they're like what's called almana ischayis, a widow who her husband is still alive. What does it mean, a widow whose husband is still alive? She's still in love with her husband, and her husband loves her, but they can't connect for some reason. They can't connect. So it's like a widow. Sometimes it's better if the person's husband dies so they can marry someone else, but they're stuck. And similarly, to a certain degree, the neshama is stuck. It wants to free itself to become one with Hashem, but it's stuck in this body. So what does it do? There's only one solution for the neshama to satisfy that desire to connect with Hashem. It's through doing Torah mitzvahs. How do we, as a human being, where the neshama is in the body, connect to Hashem and satisfy that desire to connect with Hashem? That's through Torah mitzvahs. And now this Beinoni is thinking about this. If only I would feel this. He's thinking about really what I should be. I should be driven and motivated to connect to Hashem, to do Torah mitzvahs. I should, but I still can't. So he's now putting us into the mind of the Beinoni, who's trying to inspire himself and to arouse a feeling of love to Hashem. And he knows that how do you connect to Hashem? How can he embrace Hashem and satisfy that love? So it's through Torah mitzvahs. Like it said in an earlier chapter in Tanya, that when we do Torah mitzvahs, it's like we hug Hashem, we hug a king. So there's hugging the king, even if the king is wearing many coats, it doesn't separate you from the king. Therefore, it would be the right thing and appropriate. I should love Hashem and hug Him with all my life, but I'm not so hot about putting on tefillin. I'm not so hot about keeping Shabbos, to making kiddush, lighting Shabbos candles. I'm not so, but I should. So he's thinking about really the passion that neshama should have. Studying Torah in depth. So the only solution for me to connect to Hashem is through Torah mitzvah. So I should do this with passion and emotions. But it's all I could push it to the degree is that in my mind I intellectually love Hashem. If he's going to go in depth into that, so he has the brain work all pushed to its limits. So even though the emotions are not aroused and there is no fire in his heart, but now let's skip that step and say, okay, the guy says, okay, I can't get my emotions going. So now just do it without the fiery emotions of the other guy. So just do it. So if in his mind he pushed his mind to its limits and his emotional limits, which is only a sense of emotion in the brain, but then he says the words, and now he's saying the words of davening. He doesn't have a fire in his heart, but in his mind he knows that he should. It is the right thing, and he should really love Hashem. So he's actually doing this. The Hainu li's b'Torah Hashem chefetz v'yegabayim v'layla b'piv. He's saying constantly words of Torah day and night, and his hands and the rest of his body are doing the mitzvahs. But what is his motivation? An intellectual motivation, just an emotional, an emotion that's still rooted in the brain. Not only rooted, still, it's really a potential type of emotion, an intellectual pull. So then we say that it goes from the brain to the action, and it's considered a complete. His mitzvahs are complete mitzvahs. The Zohar says, and that's with these three words, Gat from L'Parcha L'Eila. The mitzvahs need wings. The mitzvahs that we do need wings. They have to fly. How do mitzvahs fly? When we do mitzvahs, we create an energy that goes up there. When we have feelings in the mitzvah, the feelings are the wings that make a mitzvah fly. If we do a mitzvah without feelings, just by rote, putting on the straps of tefillin, I'm not in the mood, just putting on a strap, so it's recorded, and we get credit for it, and sometimes we get extra credit because we really don't want to put on that film. So there's breaking their nature, and Yetzirah putting it on film anyway. So we get credit for it. But if you want the mitzvahs to soar, take another 60 seconds and think, really, I'm doing the mitzvahs for you, Hashem, and I should love you. I should at least love you. So even though really you need fiery emotions to put those wings to soar, so the Alter Rebbe says that if the only wings you can create is intellectual feelings, so to say, so then that's going to work, that your mitzvahs should soar. So we're skipping that middle emotional state. It's considered kilo asak bahem b'chila rechima mamish. Hashem considers it, since this is the best you could do, Hashem considers it as if you put real fiery emotions in it to make it soar. It's considered as if he's on fire and he's thirsty and motivated. He's on fire to go to Hashem, and he wants to soar his whole soul to Hashem, give up his life to Hashem, and he's not there because his heart is dull. But if he puts his mind to it, and he gives the most that he can, at least in his mind, so Hashem connects the mind to the action, and it's considered a complete mitzvah. Since it is the intellectual emotion, or taluma sleeping, is the hidden part of his heart. I use that again. The hidden part of his heart is the wiring where the heart is connected to the mind. Or that's the inner wiring of the emotions where it's still connected to the mind. But it didn't pipe in feelings into the heart. So it's called taluma sleeping. It's where the wiring of mind touches emotion, but it doesn't get the battery of emotion. It doesn't have a real battery to get it really on fire. So it's considered that if he does. Why? Because why is he putting, if he's doing that, then he's motivated to put on film, or to daven, or to do things after the brain work. So that is also considered a full type of Beinoni. So the point of chapter 16 is that you have, that a Beinoni shouldn't only be using his willpower to control his actions and to do his mitzvahs, which could be, and theoretically that's one type of Beinoni, But really, a complete Beinoni should be one that also uses his mind and emotions to motivate him to do the mitzvahs. And if he can't get his emotions on fire, at least he should have his mind focused, and he should be intellectually inspired, if not emotionally inspired, to do what's right. So even if that person can't get himself emotionally inspired, since what's moving him is his brain, he's also a more complete Beinoni, because it's not just his willpower, it's also his inner self, to the degree that he is capable, is also motivating him. So he's a Beinoni not only in his outside, but also part of his inside. If he would have not meditated, he would just be enjoying physical pleasures, because he's a Beinoni, and he loves physical pleasures, and he's attracted and he's attached, and that's his composition, to enjoy and take pleasure in the physical. Why is he right now not doing that? Because he's thinking about his spirituality. And the more he meditates with his brain into the spirituality, the more he's motivated to do that. So what's motivating him? His brain work, that he's trying to think about the greatness of Hashem, and he's shaping his mind, and even he's intellectually pulled to it, but he can't get his battery, emotional battery, zapped with a fire. So this connects. The action is connected to the inner workings of his emotions, which is not revealed, and the intellect, and he's a whole. The mitzvah is a whole mitzvah, and it has the wings to soar. Even if you're going to tell me, like we learned in the previous chapter, there are personalities that their nature is more timid, and they're doing mitzvahs anyways, and they like to learn more than to play basketball or watch a hockey game. So they enjoy their bookworms and they love to learn. So nevertheless, even this guy, he's still a physical person, and he doesn't have to learn. He can enjoy his physical side and indulge in physical pleasures. And why is he not doing that? Is because, and he's learning with the biggest motivation that he can bring himself to. So then he's using also his brain and his inner self to serve Hashem. And this is the lesson. And as I said before, every part of Tanya you can take and apply to yourself. Even if you're not in that Beinoni who was on a level that working on his inner self. Even if a person's a regular guy, so to say, I would say the lesson of so far we're learning in chapter 16 is, even if you're a regular guy and you have desires of regular guys, right? But you know what? You shouldn't say, well, my inner workings, my emotions and my mind and my real inner self is elsewhere. It's in the media and the culture and in the pleasures that be. He should also work on himself and his inner self to refine it, to sublimate it by meditating about Hashem, studying Torah, understanding what life could be on a deeper level, on a more meaningful level. That is, I think, everyone can take from the Tanya that we learned today. Everyone could understand what the Alter Rebbe is saying. He's saying this not only on the Beinoni par excellence, the fullest Beinoni that we're talking about, but he's saying, you're doing what's right. So you're doing mitzvahs. Okay, so great, you're a great guy. You're doing what's right. Why are you doing what's right? Because that's the way I am, I'm doing what's right. Work also on your inner self. Meditate, think. When you're davening, focus more on your davening. When you're davening, think about making awareness of Hashem inside of you. Develop a certain taste and perhaps even a passion for mitzvahs, for Yiddishkeit, for Hashem. And that's the story. Good night.